just okay. We are live. Our counter has gone down.
So
okay,
which Megan, Dennis?
Oh, you, Megan Brunson. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
Megan 1 or 2 or.
We got
yeah.
We have 2 Megan B's.
Yep. It is 2 Megan B's. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't even say you, Megan, because if I say you don't know who I'm pointing at. So,
right.
Well, we'll say Megan and Rebel or Megan, just Megan. But
There
we want to welcome everyone out there who's joined us tonight for our 11th or 12th episode of GFBF Talks. I get the numbers confused sometimes, but we are so excited tonight for our special guest. And I'm Dennis Garden, the Executive Director of the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation. And on behalf of myself, the entire staff, the team, and our board of directors, we welcome you guys for coming on as our panelists, and we welcome everyone out there in internet land who've taken the time to join us tonight. And just as a quick commercial for the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation, the mission of the foundation is to partner with the fire service and burn care community to provide fire safety and prevention education, support medical facilities, and assist burn survivors in their recovery. And that last part of that mission statement is really what we're doing tonight, assisting burn survivors in their journey of recovery. And in the burn community, we've expanded upon the definition of burn survivor to include not just the person physically injured, but everyone who's impacted. And I think tonight coming together, we can do some of that. And on the introduction that went out, most people are familiar with the term love hurts. And yes, emotional heartache can be painful, but what about when that hurt turns physical? How does one tap into that inner strength to move through the ouch? And we're excited tonight to have an amazing group of women come together to share in conversation about victimization, overcoming trauma, and the importance of forgiveness and self-empowerment. And we are just so delighted to have you guys here tonight. And I'm going to have you guys go around and do a brief introduction of who you are and whatever you care to share with the audience. And we'll start with you, Megan Bronson.
Hi, everybody. It's really good to be here with you. And I guess I would call myself a burn care professional as well as just a person, a grandma, a mother, got 2 puppies, that type of thing. But also, you know, I've worked with the Phoenix Society for probably close to 30 years now, and known Dennis for many years. We've worked at World Burn together. And so I have a lot of experience with burn survivors and burn foundations and burn camps, et cetera, and children's programs as well as adults. But I also wanted to, on a personal level, share with you, because I've had survivors say, how do you know so much about the healing process after burns? So I will share that I am a survivor of a different kind of burn, not a physical burn, but a burn on an emotional, psychological, and soul level by someone that I loved as a child. And so having said that, that is where my understanding of healing from burn by abuse comes from. And it also comes from the many teachers that I've had among burn survivors who had been burned by abuse. So I just wanted to share with you that I don't just come at this from a professional standpoint where I've read a lot of books and done some writing and that type of thing, but it's much more personal to me. And I don't think you can ever ask anyone to go on a painful journey within if you haven't been willing to do your own journey, painful journey. So that is why I share that with you tonight. Mm-hmm. But very happy to be with you and happy to share what I know helps and doesn't help, and really come ready to listen to your hearts and what you bring on your heart tonight.
Well, great. Thank you for qualifying your presence here, Megan. Appreciate that. And we'll just roll over to the other Megan for an intro.
Hi there, I'm Megan Baldonado. I live in Bend, Oregon, and I am a burn survivor by abuse. And Dennis is one of my good friends on the other side of the nation. But we've talked quite a bit about doing something along, I guess, these lines. And I'm one of the very few actually burns by abuse with the Phoenix Society. I'm SOAR certified. So there's a very small few that are SOAR certified to talk to other burn survivors by abuse. And I'm always honored, Dennis, when you ask me to come along on another journey. And I appreciate you very much. But my ex-fiance tried to do a homicide suicide. And I was burned over 50%, had a 25% chance to live. And I'm here. Grace of God.
Yes, yes. Well, we're glad to have you here. Carly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carly Butler. I was assaulted with acid in 2006, and I try to show the world that there's still a beautiful life after trauma, and scars. In my situation, I was held at gunpoint and assaulted with acid by a woman who never admitted her relationship to my ex-boyfriend, but there was some kind of something going on. And so she was the only one held accountable for what happened to me. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison. And there's been a long journey of healing, and I'll share with you a little bit about what led me to forgive her and how I took steps to do that.
Okay,
So
great.
yeah.
I'm looking forward to us delving into that. And Kat, self-intro. And I got to preface Kat with, I reached out to her after she did a really inspiring post on Facebook, and it just resonated with us at the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation that we reached out to her. She's been a long time part of the foundation. Started as a wee little bitty camper, and has grown up to be one of our rock star volunteers. So Kat, your intro.
Hi, good evening, guys. My name is Catherine. I got burned when I was 10 years old, happened May 2nd of 2009. I got burned by my adopted father when I was in the family. He wasn't a very good man. He was very abusive, not just physically, mentally and all of that, but he was trying to basically kill the mother. And I just happened to be next to her when he did it. So I'll explain more about how, I got through it and what helped me to be where I'm at today mentally.
Well, great. Well, this is an amazing group of folks that we have here tonight. And I'm listening to you guys as you explain a little bit about what happened, and I want to jump right in. Where we know that there was a physical injury, but emotionally, where did we go, or where did you guys go with that anger? Or was it anger? Was it guilt? Was it shame? Was it all of that rolled in? And where'd you guys go with that? Because you're most of you in a pretty good place today, but that was a journey. And I'd really like to talk a little bit about the journey of not just where you are today, but what was it like getting there? And anyone can jump in, because I said this is an informal conversation, and let's talk about it, because I am very curious.
Go ahead, Carly.
Well, so I was 23 years old when I was attacked, and to go to sleep one person or wake up one person and become somebody else, to become a burn survivor, was just so shocking to me. You literally become a new person without consent. And so the emotional trauma was so deep that I was in a very dark place. I didn't really know. I'm like, who's gonna love me? What am I gonna be? How am I gonna face the world? How do I build a future for myself after that. And so I spent a lot of time kind of deep spiraling. And it took me a while because, even though I'd never spent a single night in the hospital before my injury, I went from that to 6.5 weeks in the intensive care burn unit. Everybody else got to go back to work and to school and to partying and hanging out while I was still healing from these injuries. And I think that was the hardest part for me, is not having to like rebuild my whole life again, right? And so what happened was the anger for the woman who attacked me consumed me. Like all I thought about was she sorry? Did she care? I wanted her to suffer. And all that did though was stagnate my own growth and my own healing. So it was, I woke up one day and was like, I can't live like this. Like this is not healthy at all. And I started kind of lashing out on the people who were closest to me and who loved me the most. And so that's when I made a decision that I couldn't live like that. And I really needed to consider not just forgiving her, but forgiving myself. I was living in shame, like blaming myself for the things that happened to me when really no one deserves to have acid thrown on them. And so it still continues to be a journey. There's still always something that comes up along the way. But I am really grateful for amazing mental health services and a supportive family to help me through it.
Now, when you say, Carly, that you woke up one person and then this thing happened and you became someone else that day, and this is for the entire panel. What do you mean when you say someone else? Were you someone else because you look different? Were you someone else because of the experience? Does it really make you a different person? And that's for anybody on the panel.
Yeah, sorry. It definitely changes you. I mean, I know a lot of us use the metaphor of the phoenix, right? The mythological bird that throws itself in the fire and emerges as something better or greater or something different. When somebody physically changes who you are, right, they also emotionally impact you. So you have to find new ways to live and find joy and be happy and be comfortable with yourself. And so, yes, you do essentially become a new person. But in your healing process, you decide, if you want to keep going.
Megan, you were gonna respond to that as well, Megan.
Yeah,
Not
so
Megan Brunson, the other Megan.
Megan Rebel.
Megan Rebel.
Megan Rebel.
So one of the biggest things, because I was in the hospital for 3 months, and where I was in the hospital, it was actually at BAMC and at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, and they don't do medical coma or anything. You're pretty much awake the entire time. And at the for the entire 3 months and plus, I was in a survival mode, and it was only based on survival. And then when I was out of the hospital and with my parents, which my parents lived in Bend, so they actually medically transported me from Texas to Oregon. And then I was in at Legacy Emmanuel for a while and then down. But it wasn't until it was a few weeks after I was out of the hospital. I call it like the dump truck ran over me and then backed over me again, ran over me again. It was just this of the emotional side, because I did not, even though I was awake that entire time, working on the emotional side wasn't really there. It was only based on survival. And it ran over me and hit me hard. And like what you said, Carly, taking it out on, your family and the ones that are closest to you. And it definitely is still a process. There's still triggers, there's still, all these different things. But like, I am very blessed to have God and family on my side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I have to wonder, speaking of my own experience, there was a long time I didn't feel blessed at all. Once I got burned, I didn't feel blessed, but I was raised in the church and my family is very rooted in their spirituality. They kept forcing that on me, that message on me. And I didn't know how to reject it because I'm a 14-year-old kid. I don't know how to reject it. But I would just cringe when people would tell me how blessed I was. I say, hell, I have several siblings. None of them were burned. Aren't they the ones who were blessed? How am I the one blessed? And I'm not discounting how anyone feels, but speaking for how I feel. I grew into it, but I was forced there, which caused it to take longer for me to get there because I was just rejected. I didn't want to, I didn't see anything that was to be, I didn't see a blessing in this at all. When I heard you say it, that just resonated with me. It's like, yeah. You might think I'm blessed, but you're not in my shoes. You're not laying in this hospital bed. But it's just, and I know people mean well, and they say things that can be a little clumsy or not even aware of it, because the people who told me how blessed I was, I'm sure here we are 50 years later, they have no idea that bothered me.
Right.
I didn't tell them.
I think in my work with survivors, what I have found is saying things like you're blessed by this, or this is a gift, or another one is that you will find all kinds of ways to help other people, or you should forgive. If you say those things out of time, I think a survivor needs to come up with that themselves, not me telling somebody you need to forgive that person, not me telling someone this is a blessing, you should see it like that, because it cuts off their process. We need to go through our grief and our anger and our sadness and our rage that someone would do something like what was done to those of you on here tonight. You need to go through those feelings in order to heal, not to have somebody making you feel guilty about them. That does not help people. And I do agree, Dennis, most people are saying that without thought, so they really are trying to fix things or make things better. And they don't understand that really does not help people.
Like the good intentions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the folks on the call tonight, I didn't scour the earth looking for people who had it all together and who were there. I really, and I say this in all sincerity, you guys that are on this panel, I so appreciate you being on here because of your honesty, because you're being transparent, because you're on your journey and you own it, the good, the bad, the ugly, you own it. And I think that's important for people to hear. It's important for me having relationships with you guys, just to know that I can be okay without being fixed.
Right.
And I can be okay with not being okay. And that took me a gazillion years to get to that point. And I didn't have the luxury of being affiliated with a group like this, but here we are today trying to share this with the universe.
Right.
Yeah, with the universe.
A teacher of mine many years ago said to me, a teacher in terms of helping trauma, said, it's okay to say, I'm not okay and you're not okay, and that's okay. So there are sometimes you'll feel very okay and sometimes not, and both are all right. Both are part of the process. But I do think we're a kind of fix-it society. The other thing I just wanted to make a comment on, that then other people can join in what they think about this, but if you're burned before the formation of identity, which is sometime in the later teens, that a burn itself, without it being caused by abuse, which is even more traumatic, can shatter the core self. So the core self becomes fragmented, and the work becomes calling those parts of yourself back home and helping those parts to heal. So I think many of you are talking about being in that teen time or early 20s even. The identity is not fully formed, and it can feel like you totally lose who you were because you hadn't fully formed. Who am I going to be in the world? What am I going to do? What do I want to do with my life? That's still forming. But I think it's still shattering, even if, say, you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and a relationship that you trusted does something horrible, like a burn injury. That shatters trust in the world, trust in yourself, a sense of self-worth. So there's a lot of damage that's done, but we can do a damage assessment. That's how I think about it. So what was the damage? Even list that and say, okay, I'm going to work on each one of these. So we kind of break it down to what's manageable.
Mhm. Mhm. I'd love to hear Kat's response to that, because losing a sense of self, because Kat, you were 10, 12?
I was 10.
You were 10.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't even know who you are at 10.
No.
And I'd love to hear your response to what Megan just shared.
Well, me being 10 years old, I already like had some things on my plate that I was still healing from as a like my younger self. So when I got burned, that just something in me completely changed. Like when I first looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't even recognize who I was because I was so used to seeing my, regular self. And then like my face was burned, my arms, my legs. And I just remember like looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, who is this girl? Like, why me? Like, what the heck? And I remember I was an angry child. Like I was so mad at the world. I hated who I was. I didn't love myself. Like I pushed people away. And I held on to that anger for a long time until I would say high school, until I reached high school. Like I was just holding on to all this bitterness and just angry at the man who hurt me physically, and like just I didn't like looking at myself, and I didn't like the way people looked at me. And like now at this age, I am 22, about to be 23. Like I've learned so much over the years on looking at myself differently and knowing, yes, this traumatic event happened. I didn't choose it. I didn't ask for it. But at the end of the day, here I am. I'm still breathing. I'm living each day. I'm cherishing it because we could have all died from that day. Like, we didn't have to be here, but God has a bigger plan for our life, So I look at life differently now, and going to the camp for burn survivors here in Georgia through the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation, that has become a part of me. Like it has literally been the biggest impact in my life to get me to where I am today, to where the way that I think is because they helped me to think that way. They helped me to like look at things from a different perspective instead of looking at it from, wow, this happened, blah, blah, blah. Like I shouldn't be happy. I shouldn't go out in the world and try to find myself and stuff. Like this camp has helped me to view things a lot differently, from a different perspective, with my eyes open to different things. And now, I mean, I'm still learning to love myself each and every day, because sometimes even when I'm around new people who don't know me and don't know that I'm a burn survivor, I have what's called hidden scars. So you can't see my scars. My face healed, my arms, I have some scars here on my arms, and my left leg, I got scars on both sides, So sometimes I still have those thoughts of like, I don't want to retell my story. I don't want people looking at me, but then I'm like, what if that person needs to hear it? Like,
Mm.
they could be in a abusive situation. What if, you know, like just things like that, like maybe somebody out there, it will inspire them to speak about things that have happened to them, but has made them stronger and made them just love every part of them because they were able to get through it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
also the people is what helps too. Surrounding yourself with people who are encouraging, who will accept every flaw, who will love you for you. Like not just look at the outside appearance, but look at your heart. That's the most important thing. Like when people don't look at me physically, I want them to look at me for what I have to offer, you know, what I have inside of me, you know, so.
That's your true identity. Your identity is not your scars. You know, it's who you are inside. And I
Yes.
don't know why it is, or other people could comment on this, but I don't know why people who abuse through a burn injury or acid or something of that sort very oftentimes go for the face. I don't know if you find that's true, Dennis, in your experience with people, but our face is our identity,
Right.
or so we think it is. But I think having a burn injury drives you deeper inside to find out who you really are, your true identity, not
Mhm.
identified by physical parts of yourself, but rather identified by a heart and soul of that person.
And the face is our first introduction when we meet people. I mean, our face is presented before any words ever come out of our mouth. So, and we do pass judgments. We do, whether we're conscious of it or not. We do. I mean, and it's encouraged in movies and anything else. And you know, I like to bring up The Lion King. I mean, the uncle who was the bad lion, it was Scar.
Yeah.
You know, and he
That's
had to
right.
have some sort of disfigurement to get you to know that it was the bad guy, you know. And the good guy is always the one, you know, with the chiseled features and the smile and the little twinkle, you know, the denture work is just right. And so we constantly perpetuate that, where if you're not smiling, maybe somehow you're a bad person. And if you're smiling, and I know early on when I began doing a lot of presentations in schools, I had to spend half of my time convincing the children that I wasn't a bad person because the only burned person they were familiar with was Freddy Krueger, you know. So and he was burned. So there's just a lot of things that have to be broken down, you know.
Yes.
But I found in my experience, in answer to your question, Megan, is that it wasn't until I began to work on myself.
Mhm.
It wasn't until I began to look at myself differently. Because when I looked at that monster in the mirror in the morning, when I went out in the world, I was looking for confirmation of that.
Mhm.
So the people who smiled at me and were okay, I didn't even notice those people. It was the people who responded in kind to how I was thinking about myself, just to confirm it. Yep, see, I knew it, and that confirms it right there. But I've since gotten a little older and grayer and wiser. Realize that we have more control over our environment than we realize. You know, we really do. And I did this I say I did it to myself, but it was a gasoline mishap. It wasn't like I intentionally did it, but that's how I felt because I was being disobedient as a child. And this whole thing happened. So yeah, it was my fault because I was told not to do it. But in reality, you know, guilt is not a rational emotion. But we know that guilt is as heavy and as real as we perceive it to be.
Right.
And I would like to talk about that a little bit with the panelists here, the guilt, you know, the guilt, the shame, because there were a couple of guys who I had reached out to for being on the panel as well. And the two guys who were injured in a domestic abuse situation, there's a whole nother level of shame attached to a guy being the victim of abuse than it is for a female, you know. And, you know, the one guy told me he couldn't do it, but then he spent 30 minutes giving me his whole story.
Mhm.
So he did want to talk about it, but in society, we look at it differently. I mean, we just do. It's based on gender, where if a woman is abused, then that is just not okay. But if it's a guy, somehow he's weak to allow that to happen, as unfair as it is, and like you, Carly, it was a female, but it was a male it was a male involved in the situation on some level.
In a triangle.
Well, I'll say
Yeah,
that
there you go.
there's definitely a stigma attached to being assaulted with acid. And so when people ask me what happened to me all the time. And sometimes depending on my mood, I'll say, oh, I was in a house fire. And they're like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Or I was in a car accident. They're like, oh my, sorry. But when I say I was assaulted with acid, they say, but why? As though I had to do something to provoke that. And so no one deserves anything like that. And so for a long time, it felt like wearing my past on my skin was like revealing this secret about me that I didn't really want to share with anybody. So I used to always say, I cannot wait until I don't look like what I've been through. But that's never going to happen. It's always going to be there, right? I can't wipe them away. I can't hide them. And so when you get to a point of acceptance, right? And then in your healing where you're like, okay, well, I can still live a good life and be happy and find joy and be confident. I think that's when things kind of change, right? And so for me, before this happened to me, I put so much of my worth in my physical appearance that 15 years later, this happened to me 15 years ago, I can make a post to say, when I look at photos of myself when I was laying in the hospital bed, my eye wouldn't close. Every time I opened my mouth, my eye would, just totally messed up. That like I couldn't see the gift in what was happening to me and how it was transforming me, right? But I think we all have to, it takes time for us to get to the place where we see the blessing in what happened. And so now, I look like what I've been through, but I see it as an opportunity to share with people all the time how good God has been to me. Like, yes, bad things happen to good people all the time. You can keep it pushing and keep moving forward. But there are so many components that go into like building resilience and being able to get back. I know so many survivors who have not been able to do that, who have struggled with suicide and mental health issues. So I do feel very blessed in that way. It's like, oh my gosh, I made it out to the other side. And so I don't care about these scars. At least I'm here, right? So you all are saying so many things that are just resonating with me. And I'm like so excited to know you all.
I think all forms of abuse, most especially something as severe as burning and causing scars in another person, they're all ways of putting one shame onto someone else. In other words, I'm going to get you to feel the shame I don't want to feel in myself or guilt. So that's one reason to really work hard to lay that shame down, because it's not yours. So when somebody asks you why, a good healing answer in your pocket could be very helpful. Like, you're asking the wrong person why.
Yeah.
I don't have that answer.
Absolutely.
That
Yeah.
belongs to the person. So
And like,
I don't like both.
like Megan,
we don't.
You were, and you're freezing up a little bit, Megan. We're getting bits and pieces of it.
Oh, okay. I don't think it's. It looks like I've got good internet, Dennis, so I don't know what that would be about.
Okay, but Megan, it was your boyfriend, fiance?
My
Megan,
fiance.
your fiance. Why didn't you see it coming? And I'm just playing the devil's advocate because that's how people, those are the kind of questions. Didn't you see that coming?
No, not at all. So I was finally I got the strength to leave him, and I was packing up as much as possible. And I was trying to get out of there, but I still cared for him. And I was only 21 years old. So, and was with him for almost 4 years. So
21 and in love.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank God I canceled that wedding though.
Yeah.
We were supposed to actually get married on June 4th. And my dad gave me an analogy. And I don't know how my dad comes up with these analogies, but he's a rock star at it. But he gave me this analogy, and I was in the airport, like flying back to New Mexico, and I was like, we can't get married. A wedding is a day and a marriage is a lifetime, and I'm not starting my life like this. Because there was adultery and all this stuff that 2 weeks before the wedding, he was confessing everything. So canceled the wedding. And like, I had no idea that it was going to happen. It wasn't until, because I kept going down to the garage, like to check on him because he was acting so weird. And the last time I went down into the garage, like I brought a Rice Krispie, like his favorite snack, Rice Krispie treat, like all this stuff down with me, trying to calm him down. And it wasn't until he told me, if I were you, I'd scoot back. And that's when I saw the lighter in his hand. And then that's when I saw all the rags of gasoline and, well, smelt the gasoline and saw all the rags. And then I went to go stand up, and then it was barely a flick. And it was pretty much a flash burn. It was so hot that it melted the metal sprinklers on the roof or on the ceiling. And pretty much melted the garage door like into a bubble, and was like hanging by a thread. But I seriously I didn't know that he was, I guess, truly capable, I guess, of doing that. And one of the hardest parts about this entire thing for me is the justice system. Because they pushed the trial past the statute of limitations, so I couldn't file a civil suit. So the trial, it took 27 months for us to actually get to trial. The statute of limitations was 24 months. And then he pled guilty, and he got 10 years probation. And only I fought extremely hard for him to serve 6 months. The judge let him out early. I fought that. So it almost took me 6 months for him to be able to serve the 6 months. So that part is a whole nother level. Yeah.
But for someone to do something like that to you and then not to get punished for it, did it cause you to question your value?
Yep. I won't lie, at times it still does. Like there's a lot of times that it still does. And I'm like, at times it's very hard. But Dennis, you know me, I'm a joker. So.
And I just appreciate your candor with this, because I know talking about this sometimes it's not easy. It's cathartic sometimes, and sometimes it's not easy. But I would have to think that to commit a crime like that and not be punished for it, I would imagine it would affect a person's self-worth or value. Am I not even valuable enough for the person to be punished for it?
I was always so mad too.
You did who?
I was always very mad because like the man that did it, that burned me, like being a kid, we had defects come in, they had to do an investigation. They had to figure out what happened and stuff. And it's like, I can't remember exactly like what I said, but I know, like, I don't know if I physically said it, like verbally said it or what, but like, I knew he did it on purpose. I was like, he did it on purpose. He did it on purpose. But like, when they did the investigation and all that, like, they just let it go because they said, no, it was an accident. No, you know, it
Oh
it
my gosh,
didn't
Kat,
happen that way.
same exact thing. Me too. So no joke, like right when, so I was like on the gurney getting pulled into the ambulance, and I was screaming because they asked him, how did this happen? And he said, I was working on my engine and it sparked. And I started screaming, he did it, he did it, he did it. And he, no joke, confessed that he did it, but still, in like all the news articles and everything, it was, he did it on accident.
Mm.
So it's like,
And
I am, so it's like this like deeming thing of, you know, I'm the bad person, kind of what you were saying earlier, Dennis. Like,
Mhm.
I'm the villain.
Mhm.
He's, you know, he's just living pretty much scot-free. And I'm like, only if I would have, I'm like, I wish I would have filed that civil suit. But he was facing life.
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm. What were you about to say, Kat?
I feel the pain of that, because I was like, when you asked that question, I was like, even though as a kid, like as a child, you know, like why don't people listen to kids? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would a kid make stuff up like that? You know, and like I saw him do it. Like I was right there, because the story that he would tell was that the dog tipped over the gasoline can, right? We had tiki torches on the driveway. This man was writing our names with gasoline, lighting it on fire, right? But he threw the gasoline onto the tiki torches, and it made a big ball of blue ball of fire, and it went towards me and my adopted mom. Well, I saw it happen, and he would tell people like, "Oh, the dog tipped over the can." How would the gasoline, like, it's now, you know, as a grown adult, right? I look back and I start thinking like, how do grown people not try to investigate that? Because that makes no sense. How
Well, I think when you're getting into the judicial system, that's an entirely another animal altogether.
Right,
I mean,
right.
it's just, I mean, there are some benefits to the system, but there are also some flaws in the system as well as with anything else. But I would like to ask you, Kat, what was your relationship like with your foster dad before this happened?
it wasn't like he was like he adopted me, you know, so he was a adopted father or whatever, but he wasn't really a father. Like
Mhm.
it was like I was just there. Like I'm not, like I wasn't his child, because fathers are supposed to love you and supposed to protect you, and they're supposed to help you grow and build you, right? This man didn't do that. Like as a child, like he abused me, and then this took it a little step further of, hey, you know, just gonna burn you, you know. And
Mhm.
he was just not a good person in general, but I couldn't do anything about it, is what it felt like, because I was a child and I wasn't, nobody was listening, kind of deal.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah, having
he was not a dad to you.
No.
No.
but having your reality denied or your truth denied is really traumatizing. And so like I feel your pain. I'm like getting emotional. But going through my trial, this woman consistently denied no, like ever doing anything to me, right? And so the way the system is, they kept making me question my own sanity. Was this her? You know, am I accusing the right person? I mean, her family was angry with me. It was just a hot mess. But the moment I heard her voice, time stopped. And I'm like, okay, I felt reassured again, like that is her. And
Mhm.
down to the very end, even after I gave all my testimony, this woman said, you know, I'm really sorry that happened to her, but you know, it wasn't me. And
Okay.
so, you know, there was no remorse. No, and this is somebody I did not know and who did not know me. So still to this day, as much as I have forgiven her and I've let it go, we will never have a relationship. It's like, Like, what would make you do something like that to a person and then take it that far? So it's
And
still
that
fascinating to me.
and you know, you mentioned that a couple of times, and I really like to put this out to the panel about forgiveness. And when you talk about self-empowerment, what role does forgiveness play in that? You know, if you harm me, either emotionally or physically, and I forgive you, is that for you or is that for me? The forgiveness piece.
I'd like to speak to that, Dennis, and then throw it out to people. So I have a devil's advocate question.
Megan, you're kind of cutting out.
There is no remorse.
Ask
Megan,
the question, ask the question again, you froze up.
Okay, if there is no remorse and there's not, and I'm sorry that I did this to you, and any attempt to somehow help you as a, what do they call that in AA, making amends. There's none of that. There's no justice. Why should you forgive them? Why should you forgive your perpetrator? So I just put that out there to everybody to speak to.
For me personally, I didn't forget for a long time. Like I said, in high school was when I was so sick and tired of feeling the way that I was feeling, because they were it's like this, somebody has a hold on you. It's like you can't let go, and it's like you're constantly thinking about it. You're just, something reminds you of what happened, and it's just like, oh, I hate this person. I'm so angry. Like, I hate why they even come in my life, like just things like that. But when I forgave, I'm pretty sure it was my CLC teacher. And they were telling me, like y'all said, forgiveness isn't for them, but it's for you. Let that hurt go. Like, let it go and just start fresh. You can forgive them. That doesn't mean you have to forget, but forgiveness is just going to be for you to take the next step forward so that you can move on. You can start healing within yourself, and just, even though, yes, they were a bad person, the worst, because like when I tell you I hated that man, like I hated that man. That's such a bad and strong word personally for me, because I don't like to use that hate word, but he was one of the worst people that came into my life. But at the end of the day, looking back to how I got here, where I'm at, and how I'm standing strong, like, it taught me a lot throughout my years, and it taught me to love myself even more. And it also just, I'm grateful. I'm grateful, and thankful. So it took a lot. It's not easy. Like y'all said, everybody has to heal in their own way. We all don't heal the same. We have to forgive,
I'd like to challenge the concept of forgiveness. I was raised Catholic, which is a Christian religion.
And if you're raised Catholic, I mean, you're guilty. It's your fault. You should be ashamed.
Guilty, it's my fault, and I got to forgive him. No way out of that.
Dennis had to make a comment somewhere.
And if I don't, then I'm the bad person. But the Protestant religions also teach that forgiveness is absolution, and it is not. It's not our job to absolve somebody. Our job is to let go of the anger and the hatred, and not carry that in our heart and soul, but to let go of that, because it hurts you to carry it. It hurts me to carry it. And that person does indeed, own us in a way. They still have a hold on us. So to forgive means letting go of that anger and hurt and rage so you can move on. Even if there's never any visible justice. Who was it said the arc of justice is long? It may have been Ruth Ginsburg, somebody wise like that, but that just means it will come around.
Right.
Do you find that it's more difficult for people to forgive themselves than other people? And I asked that question because there was a 13-year-old kid that got burned in the fire with me. And this whole situation was created because of my brilliant idea, because I was so intelligent as a 14-year-old. And I had a couple of friends to help me work on my dirt bike. And the one friend who didn't want to work on it was the one I remember telling him, if you don't help fix it, don't ask to ride. And he caved in and he helped. And of course, the one that got burned was him. And I didn't know that I was carrying as much guilt until I was at an ABA convention, the American Burn Association convention in Las Vegas, which is where he lives. And I say, man, I'm going to be here for 6 days. He and I can sit down and, have a drink and we can talk about this because we've never talked about it. And man, when I called him on the phone, there was a lump in my throat and I started physically shaking because I realized I needed to tell him I was sorry, but I was afraid because what if he doesn't accept my apology? And I didn't know I was carrying that. And this was 25 years, 30 years after the burn. And even now today, believe it or not, 50 years later, I still carry the guilt of him getting hurt. Now, it was carelessness. I know that here, but the 14-year-old right here is still feeling so very sorry that I hurt him. And I haven't forgiven myself because you can do pretty much anything to me and I'll forgive you. That's just my nature. But God, just forgiving myself is an entirely different situation altogether.
And so true.
And it just seems easier to forgive other people than to forgive ourselves. And I think that is so incredibly important to self-empowerment and really talk about carrying the weight of not forgiving someone else. God, the weight of not forgiving myself is just as heavy, probably heavier. Probably heavier. And I know we're having a conversation about injuries, but really, if you think about it, it always amazes me. This conversation could apply to anything in life. Just anything in life, aside from the burns. There are other aspects of me that I don't like. My head's so damn big, there are other aspects that have nothing to do with the burn, There were people who didn't care for me despite this, I've been married, I've been divorced, but so have tons of other people who haven't been burned. So it's really, so we're not so much talking about the injury, we're talking about the journey.
Right.
Just the journey of our experiences in life. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys being willing to take the time to be here and being so candid about it. I think it's been a really good conversation. And believe it or not, we're rolling around to the end of this hour and it was so fast because we really could stretch this into 2. But we've been very deliberate in honoring people's time. We say GFBF talks the second Tuesday of every month for 1 hour, and we want to stick to that hour. But I do want to bring that up to see if there was anything that anyone wanted to share this evening that maybe you didn't get a chance. I want to make everybody aware we got like 6 minutes to go.
Okay.
Anything you'd like to share?
I'd like to very, very quickly say something. I don't know if you were there, Dennis, at the World Burn where Kim Phuc was there from Vietnam.
I was there.
I was.
She's now from Vancouver, but she is the little 9-year-old girl who ended the Vietnam War, and she ended it. She was hiding with her family in a church, and one of our planes, United States, bombed the church with napalm, and her clothes were burned off her. And this picture on the cover of every magazine showing her running from the church ended the war. But when I met her, she was talking about finding the pilot who was piloting that plane, and she forgave him. And she goes around the world teaching the importance of forgiveness. And she's one of the most peace-filled person I have met. I just wanted to mention that as a kind of an example of a human being who really got it right and was able to transcend so much to let go of her hatred and anger.
Carly, you were chomping at the bit. I saw you almost jumped into the camera.
Oh, I was just going to say that forgiveness is personal. And it's definitely a journey. And for me, it started as a thought, right, of something that I wanted to try to do. And then it was something that I like committed to. But before I ever told Nicole, the woman who assaulted me with acid, that I forgave her, I'd spoken to all these people and said, yeah, I forgive her, but I didn't tell the most important person. So in my experience, I say it's personal because I wanted to forgive her, but my family is not forgiving at all. They still want 5 minutes in a room with this woman. So I had to embark on that journey by myself, right? They're like, what if she's crazy and she writes you and says horrible things to you or wants to do something? So when I sent my letter to her while she was incarcerated, it was not knowing whether or not she would respond, not knowing whether or not she would even care, but I needed to do that to release and kind of plant a seed. And so it can be hard when you're in a space where you want to forgive, but your family and support system don't. And so I often think like, oh my gosh, would I forgive somebody if they harm my son? Like, I don't know. That's a whole different challenge, right? So there are like all these layers. It's just so much more complicated than a simple saying, I will always forgive. It's just something that you really have to work through personally.
Did it lighten your load?
Absolutely. It freed me up. I just like, I think about her sometimes, but I know that forgiveness does not mean that we have to have a relationship, and it doesn't mean reconciliation because both of us weren't involved in the process, but I feel better about where I've gone to in my life, and I hope that she sees better days.
Yeah. One of the things that the support group that I used to be affiliated with, the motto was, we ask for help, not because we're weak, but because we want to remain strong. And I know that asking for help, oftentimes people feel it's a sign of weakness, asking for help. And I really want to make sure, Megan Brunson, I really want to make sure that you impressed upon our listeners, how important is it? And is it okay to ask for help? And how important is that? And we're posting up some resources that people can tap into, but I just really wanted you to speak to that.
I think it's absolutely essential. And I know I've been on that journey with people's journey with them, and I'm always struck by the courage. But to a person, once you set that intention, like what Carly is saying, it starts out as a thought, and then it becomes an intention, and then it becomes an action. And part of the action is I'm going to work and find people to help me on this journey. So I think once you set your feet on a healing path, that the right book, the right person, the right teacher, the right group, the right therapist, they will be there for you, but you have to set your intention and start taking steps. So one of them is asking for help.
And that is just so difficult for people sometimes to ask for help, particularly when it's readily available. And like I said, we've got a few resources that we're posting, and we'll have it posted on our website as well, but it's just a couple of them. There are so many incredible resources out there for people who may need a little bit of assistance, a little bit of encouragement, a little bit, maybe a swift kick in the pants, whatever is required. There are so many resources out there, and we just want people to know that if you think you need help, you probably do. I was hesitant about seeing a therapist, and I was asked, Dennis, a therapist might not help you, but it definitely won't hurt. And that was a deal breaker for me. And that was absolutely right. Because I'm helping all these people. So of course I gotta be okay. But no, right. No, that wasn't the case at all. But I really can't thank you guys enough for being on here. Does anybody have any parting words of wisdom you'd like to leave? We got 2 minutes and we'll be signing off. If you try a therapist and it's not a good fit, ask for a referral or find someone else, because it's not going to be a good fit with everyone, and every therapist isn't knowledgeable about trauma, unfortunately.
you'll be very fortunate to find a trauma therapist who is well-versed in burn injuries.
Mhm.
So, but I think as long as you have a therapist well-versed in trauma and complicated loss, that find a person you connect with and click with. And if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, and that's okay. It's okay to move on and try someone else. Even go the first time as an interview. Say, I'd just like to interview you and see if this is a good fit.
Yeah, because the stigma no longer
very
exists
good.
that you got to be crazy to go see a therapist. That stigma's long gone.
Right.
But I can't tell you, the two Megans, Carly and Kat, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you guys taking the time and being willing to be so courageous and being transparent and vulnerable here tonight, because I know I can speak for myself. I was inspired and helped tonight, and I would like to believe there are people out there who have drawn something from this conversation that we had, and I speak on behalf of the foundation that we thank you, and me personally. This was inspiring for me, and we will have this downloaded or uploaded, whatever the terminology is, on our YouTube channel, where we're piling up quite an archive. And something tells me, based on the responses we'll probably get, I'll probably be tapping you guys to do a part 2 on this, because I think we were just really beginning to scratch the surface with this.
I think
so thank you guys
very
so
needed.
very much.
It's a multi-dimensional type talk.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank
Yeah.
you for asking
Well,
me.
thank you guys so
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah, nice
right.
meeting you all. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing.
you too.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Smooches,
everybody.
love you all.
Love you too.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Rebel.
Yeah, bye, Rambo. Yeah, exactly.
There's thunder right now, so he's
Hey.
like connected.
Aw. Yeah, he needs his mom.